Before we get started, if y'all could do me a favor, pick up your phones. Anybody that you know that's with FFL that you know could afford an extra two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 grand a month in income, shoot them a text and go, hey, srsliftoff.com. The call is starting right now. You don't want to miss this. Thomas, how long have you been selling insurance with FFL?
Coming up, let's see, next month will make my 2-year anniversary, the end of October.
2 year anniversary, end of October. Okay, so I was selling insurance for 3.5 years before I sold my first annuity. And the reason was I ran in Baltimore City and I said, you know what? People don't have any money in Baltimore, which is complete, pardon my French, bullshit. They do. Um, it's just not the kind of money I was thinking. And me being so ignorant was thinking that, people really didn't just save money where I grew up. They just spent it all and they were living paycheck to paycheck. But I started asking the question, and surprisingly enough, people save money. 50 grand, they had 100 grand, 200 grand. The biggest annuity I wrote in Baltimore City was over 800,000 in the city. Um, so it's just a matter of doing it. So Tom has been coming up on 2 years, 1.5 his second year in the business for annuity volume is insane to me. So I'm gonna shut up and let him rip and let Thomas go through whatever he feels would be helpful to y'all because he is a newer. I mean, in my opinion, he's a newer agent. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I mean, 10,000 man hours to become a professional at something, which doesn't 10,000 hours don't happen in 2 years. So he's still learning his craft. Um, but he's doing a damn good job with it. So we'll let him rip. At the end, if y'all have any questions, type them in the chat, and you can type them throughout. I see David Allen here, and I know John Gavin's at a meeting right now with an annuity company for us. But between me and David Allen, we'll try and answer as many questions as you guys have while Thomas is ripping. And at the end, if I got any questions for him, I will ask him. So, Tom, thank you for hopping on. I greatly appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having me, man. So, if I can, Frank, I'm going to share my screen and I want to share what basically I sort of present to folks. Whenever you go into a home or you're doing a telesales meeting, whatever it might be, whether you sell them life insurance or whether you don't, everyone should be asking that magic question that Frank referred to earlier. So, I mean, I guess real quick, right offhand, does anybody know exactly what that magic question is? Before I leave any appointment, I'm asking this no matter what.
You want to role play with me, Tom?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's do it because I think this is the most important part of what you do, bar none.
There you go. There you go. Well, hey, Frank, man, I appreciate you taking some time with me today. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you better. Sorry we couldn't come up with a solution that works for you within this avenue, but that's okay, man. At least I made a new friend. But let me ask you something. We went over something earlier, it kind of got me thinking. Do you have anything else that acts like life insurance?
What do you mean that acts like life insurance?
That's a good question. So let me elaborate. So do you have like, I don't know, money sitting in a savings account collecting dust in a bank? Do you have money in a shoebox under your bed, a 401k sitting out in limbo, money market account, anything like
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a 401k with a job that I used to have before I went to be self-employed. I have an old 401k, and we Italian people like to store cash, so I have a bunch of money in a safe.
Yeah, well, good for you, man. Okay, so in a safe, right? So that 401k, do you know who it's with? What's going on with it? Is it just out there kind of chilling or?
Yeah, it is chilling. I left there 4 years ago, so it when I left, it was I think T. Rowe Price.
Okay. Yeah, might have changed since then. All right. Do you have any idea what's in that 401k or what you have cash wise sitting in a safe?
The last statement I received, it was a little over 100,000.
Over 100,000. Okay. And of that, let's say it's 100,000, give or take, market goes up and down every day, of that 100,000, Frank, how much of that 100,000 are you willing to lose to market risk?
I mean, willing, I don't want to lose any.
You don't want to okay. All right. Well, ask the question just to kind of gauge everyone's risk tolerance. Everyone's a little different, you know. A 25-year-old might have a different risk tolerance than a handsome 40-year-old like yourself, right? So very good. All right. Well, let me ask you this, Frank. If because you're like me, you know, you work hard for your money, you want your money working hard for you. Inflation, they claim, is up 8%. When I look at the price of eggs, I think it's up 200%, but maybe my math is off.
It's
But
crazy.
you know, you work hard for that money, man. You don't want it to lose. You don't want it to go away, right? And so the last thing I want to do is give anyone or give Uncle Sam any more of my money than I have to. So if there was a way I could show you how to get that money to continue to grow for you and take advantage of all the growth in the market with absolutely no risk of loss, you can't lose. Is that something you'd be willing to kind of learn more about?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer is always, I've never heard anyone say no.
Right.
Right. And if they do say no, just say, oh, okay, great, because they're you can't teach them anything. Right. So just
Right.
move on. Don't waste your time. But at that point, if you know what you're doing, you can segue into maybe a presentation following up with them. Usually, when we're talking about moving money to that degree, it's not a one call close. You know, so I'm typically having two, sometimes three appointments before I can get the close. And you know, you got to put a little more effort and love into it, but man, the juice is worth the squeeze when you can. Now, if you don't have if you don't have a clue what you're doing, or you don't know the ins and outs of an annuity, don't be afraid to ask the question. Just like yeah, like David Allen said here, you know, ask the question, position the response to receive a yes, right? Always ask the question, because if you don't know what you're doing, you have a plethora, an entire team and family here of resources to take advantage of, myself included. I would challenge you to get us involved so that you can then just learn throughout the process. You know, you may like some of my language, feel free to steal it. Everything I know, I've stolen from someone. Um, if I'm involved and there's something I say that you don't like, don't repeat it. I mess up all the time, right? But don't cut yourself short by not at least asking the question. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Yeah, let me just reposition some stuff here. All right, can everybody see this okay?
Yes, sir.
Per- Perfect. Usually in the second meeting, this is where I follow back. And, you know, everybody's got a different way of doing this business. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do. There's a million and one different ways to skin this cat, as they say. For me, I take a layered approach, right? Whether I'm selling them life insurance or not, we're starting with the foundation. That is your protection. That's your defensive planning. You know, I had a client like 6 months ago. Actually, now it's been close to a year, but he's like, "Hey, man, you know, I saved up $15,000. You know, what's that Tesla all about? You know, talk to me about stocks and investing." I'm like, "Okay, hold on." I know you got two kids like me. You're 1099. You own a business. You got a mortgage. I said, man, that's awesome. You saved up 15,000, but dude, if heaven forbid you don't wake up tomorrow, I can't even bury you for $15,000 in the state of Virginia, right? So you got to talk about that defensive planning. But from there, we're going to take it each step at a time. My job is to educate the client. Now, what the client does with that education is entirely up to them. But this way, if I can get more than one solution within a family or a household, that business automatically becomes way, way more sticky. I don't deal with chargebacks. In fact, my persistency, I think I've had one final expense policy fall off. So 99% persistency or something like that. And that's where the value comes in here, right? So, you know, we talk about and again, I steal stuff all the time. You can see this is from iStock, whatever, right? But the market, what do we know about the market? So, Frank, your money is in a 401k out there, not getting managed. You really don't have your hands on the wheel. Are you aware of the fact that the market goes up and down every day? Yeah, he's aware. He knows he loses sometimes, right? So, and if it's somebody that has a little age on them, I might say, hey, let me ask you, did you have money in the market or in your 401k during 08, 09 when the housing market crash happened? Does anybody know what took place in 08, 09 in the market? And I don't know if you're allowed to unmute yourself or whatever. Feel free to engage.
Thomas, sorry, man. Our power went out, so I just had to log in on my phone.
Okay.
So I lost you for like a minute or 30 seconds. So, but I'm here. Sorry about that.
So guys like Frank don't want to play with me no more, man. That's cool.
Nope, I'm good. What you got?
So yeah, we everybody's answered accordingly. We had the crash, right? And so we say, people lost about 40% in the market. Well, the average was about 40% in the S&P. And the S&P is sort of the benchmark in the market. But I know people that were in very high risk, high reward equities, and they lost as much as 85%. So imagine having $1 million in your retirement account. You're thinking, oh man, this thing's done great. I'm going to retire next year. And then seemingly overnight, you lose, let's just call it 40%. Are you retiring the next year? No, no, that's a huge jump. You just went from 1 million to 600,000. That's crazy, right? And David Allen said my uncle had to cancel his retirement and continue working for another 5 years. It took about 4 to 6 years for most people just to bounce back and not only break even, but then start accumulating again. So that's a tough place, and we don't want to put our clients in that spot. And if you had clients that experienced that, they didn't like it either. So when we talk about fixed index annuities, first and foremost, guys, I not once did you hear me say when I was telling the client about the concept, I never once said fixed indexed annuity. You didn't hear me say a title, anything like that, because to me that it's not important what the title is. What it can do is very important. The value that it can bring. I got to get there first. I say, well, what is this thing called? Well, I refer to it as a secure retirement account. Now, once I go through all the value and stuff, yes, they're going to find out it's a fixed indexed annuity, but I usually don't bring up annuity in general. First off, they don't know what the hell an annuity is. Not really. Second off, some people have a negative association with the term annuity because someone, Uncle Bob in the trailer park years ago, told them that was a bad deal. And for some reason, Uncle Bob's word's biblical, right? They're going to believe everything he says. Maybe they got a variable annuity a while back with fees and susceptible to loss. Whatever the case is, I just don't mention it. So when I'm going through the presentation, I'll say, all right, so Frank, we've got what we call a secure retirement account. All right. And just to kind of explain the fundamentals, the meat and potatoes of this, your money goes into the secure retirement account and it participates in the upside of the market. Okay. If the market goes up, so does your money, right? Sometimes there's a transfer bonus involved, stuff like that. That's icing on the cake. We'll get there later. Right now, I really just want to focus on the value this thing brings regardless, right? Depending on how we structure it, it can provide a lifetime income. It can outlive you. But here's a huge, huge value in my mind. You have protection from the downside of the market. What does that mean? Well, the market goes up. We just realized that you can take advantage of the full upside of the market. When the market goes down or goes below zero, you don't take a loss at all. You just don't get a gain. So 0% is far superior to negative 50%. Does that make sense? And the whole time, like Desiree, you're shaking your head, you're listening, right? So I'm making sure, I'm like, does that make sense? I'm looking at them, I'm shaking my head, they're shaking their head. I'm like, cool. Oh, also, with this particular one, now guys, this is different around the deal, but without going down the rabbit hole, I said there's no caps, no fees here. And what does that mean for you? Well, essentially, there's no cap or ceiling on the upside. If the market goes up 5, 10, 25%, so do you. If the market goes down, however, there is a floor, and the floor is zero. You'll never lose again. Okay. Does that make sense? They're saying, yes, it makes sense. Okay. And then there's no fees. So, Frank, right now, you may or may not be aware. I never try to be assumptive as to what folks do or don't know, but your 401k has a lot of fees within it that a lot of folks aren't aware of. Okay, you're getting charged fees on every fund family, every investment that you're in within that portfolio. Usually, there's management fees involved. And it doesn't seem like a lot. They're small numbers, but they add up in a big way. So let me just kind of explain that, right? So I was reading an article the other day with USA Today, and just to kind of put that into perspective for you, let's say you've got Bob, and Bob's investing $10,000 a year for retirement over 30 years and getting a 7% return. Everybody with me? Yep, got some shaking heads. Good. Okay. So Bob's investing $10,000 a year over 30 years, getting a 7% return every year, no more, no less, just to keep the math simple. Okay. At 30 years, Bob should have well over $1 million. But because Bob was paying a 1% management fee, Bob now has 838,000 in his portfolio. Let's say Bob was paying 2%. Does 2% sound like a huge number? Not to most people, but here's the impact it can have on you. If Bob paid 2% over the last 30 years, Bob not only doesn't have over a million, he's got less than 700,000 in there. Do you see the impact that these fees can have on your account? Well, that's not a thing anymore. You won't have to worry about it. When people realize how much money they're losing or paying someone else, so I got to go talk to my financial advisor. Perfect. I'd love to talk to them too. I love making new friends. I do a Pepsi challenge with anybody, right? The fact is, most financial advisors out there, and this isn't something I tell a client, I'm talking to you as peers. Most quote unquote financial advisors don't understand annuities in general, much less fixed index annuities or life insurance. And that's because that's not their bread and butter. That's not where their money is. They like what they call AUM, assets under management. So if they're charging 1.5%, 2%, or like Raymond James got in trouble a few years ago, got sued for charging like 4 or 5% or something like that. I mean, it was huge. And that's their residual income. That's why they can go golfing on Thursdays at noon and feel okay, regardless of what your money's doing, right? So this one I stole from you a while back, Frank. I just tried to make it my own a little bit. So how does this indexed investment work? Okay. Well, just like the market, let's say it's just going up and down, up and down. The market's a roller coaster. Okay. Now, if you can live long enough and you don't get emotional and take your money out when there's a downturn, the potential for it to be up one day over the next 5, 10, 20 years, that's the plan. However, what I want to really illustrate with this graphic is the impact a loss has on your account. So, Frank, I don't know if you know this, but a loss on your portfolio has a much bigger impact than a gain. I don't know if anyone really understands that, and I wouldn't expect them to, right? But let me explain. So in this particular, index, the secure retirement account, when your money goes up, you get to capitalize. That's locked in. When the market goes down, that's okay. You're still locked in. You don't go down. When the market grows, so do you. When the market goes down, you don't go down. So you're locking in those gains, right? You're insuring your premium. Now, however, the impact of a loss. So, Frank, hang with me when I say this. Let's say you keep your money in that 401k. You don't transfer it to this secure retirement account. Okay. It's in your 401k. And just to keep the math simple so I can get the point across, let's say you're in the 401k, you have $100,000 even right here this year. Okay. And let's say we have another 08, 09 or 2012 through 14 when we had the tech bubble crisis or whatever. And let's say you took a 50% loss. And this is where I need y'all to engage, right? If you got 100,000, Frank, and you took a 50% loss, how much is in your portfolio now?
50.
50,000. Okay, good job. So you didn't even need your calculator for that, right? So here's the crazy thing. You got 50,000 in here. That was a big hit. But let's play it like this. Miraculously, and I mean crazy, because this has never happened in the market. Let's say the next year is phenomenal. It's a bang up year, and you actually get a 50% gain. How much money do you have in there now?
100.
Okay, I know you gave that one to me to help out. Thanks, brother. So 9 out of 10 people say I've got 100. Well, you don't. Okay, because here's why: you had 100,000, you took a 50% loss. All right, so you got 50,000 in here. The next year, which this doesn't happen, has never happened in history, you actually got a 50% gain. But you got 50% gain on the 50,000, the account value. So that's 25,000. Now you have 75,000. You're nowhere near even breaking even. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, they're shaking their head. I'm like, so that's what I mean, like taking a loss is huge, man. I mean, maybe you bounce back with time, you know, maybe you don't. It's one of those things. I just don't like losing money. So and this is something I typically don't show a client, but to kind of get the again, the concept for you folks across is, let's say you take an indexed annuity, fixed index annuity, and you take the actual S&P returns from year 2000 to 2015. These are the actual S&P returns and losses. Okay. You put $1 million in the S&P. All right. And you start withdrawing 60,000 a year, every year, to live retirement. All right. So you had 1 million, you took out 60,000, but in 2000, you also took a hit of negative 10%. So you're down here, right? And you can see how this goes. You keep taking hits, you're losing, you're still pulling out 60,000 every year, but then you've got some gains to kind of make up for that, hedge your loss. The moral of the story is, in 12 years, guys, you're in a position where you can't even pull out 60,000 anymore. Okay. You're already in the negative. Now you're losing money. All right. Let's say, and the concept I talk about, there's no caps, no ceiling, but let's say you had an 8% cap on that S&P in this particular product at the time. And even with a cap, the fact that you can't lose is huge. So let's say you had a cap, you had your $1 million in, but now we're in a secure retirement account. You pull 60,000 out, well, you've got 940,000, right? Simple math. But look here, did you get a loss? No, you didn't get a gain either, but you didn't lose. That's huge. So it keeps going like that. And then you get a gain. It's not the gain you saw over here, but I'm still withdrawing 60,000 every year and I'm never losing. So even with a cap, I'm able to continue to withdraw. And at 2015, over here, I would have been negative 164,000. Over here, I still have over $300,000 to continue to withdraw off of. You guys understand the impact of a loss, right? So I'm going to show you a real time. This is an actual real client of mine. Again, without getting into the weeds, 77-year-old gentleman. So the first year in, from 77 to 78, he had $370,000 in here, right? So if you transfer that over, if this particular index behaves the way it has over the last 20 years, historically, this is how your 370,000 will act. Now, I can't promise you it's going to behave that way. I'm very bullish on it. I feel good about it. I have my money in the same investment. However, what I can guarantee is that you'll never lose again. And that's very valuable, right? But let's just take a look at it. You got 370,000. They average it up every 2 years. You see, you got some great gains, some years not so good, 3%. But what do you never see? You're never going to see a red, a negative, right? So at 370,000, you don't contribute another red penny to it. Over the next 10 years, that 370,000 is looking at about 1.5 million. Okay. Let's give it another, 8 years. $6.2 million in there. Now, does that look good or bad?
Looks
I don't think
fantastic.
it's amazing, right? Now, don't take my word for it. So I kind of like to break this down for folks, right? So what I want you to do, Frank, is kind of focus on this middle and right block over here. So let's say we put your $370,000 of your hard-earned money and transferred it over to the secure retirement account. If your $370,000 were to grow within the highest of the highest 10 years, what they've done is they've taken the highest consecutive 10 years over the last 20 years. They didn't cherry pick them. They said these are the highest 10 years it's averaged over the last 20 years. If yours performs that way, your 370,000 in 10 years would look more like 2.2 million. And here's why. Here's the average interest. But check this out, right? Because I don't know that it's going to do the highest. I kind of want to know both. So if you took the lowest consecutive 10 years that this index has performed over the last 20 years, right? You put your 370,000 in 10 years, you're still looking at what, 1.4, 1.5 million. And here's why. What I what I consider fair is just looking at the most recent 10 years, all right, how it's performed. And if it does anything like it has, your 370,000 does look like a little over 1.5 million. And here's why. Okay. So Frank, I've been flapping my gums enough. I'm gonna shut up. What questions or concerns do you have for me, if any?
Should if you guys have questions, please type them in the chat and I'll get them to Thomas. I love, and second, can you send me that presentation so I can blast it out to everybody that wants it? If you do want it, my email address is frank@fflnational.com. If you want it, just shoot me an email and I will send it out to you as soon as Thomas sends it to me. I don't want Thomas want to have you having to answer and reply to all these people, so I'll take care of that for you. The slide with the sequence of returns, to me, the one where you go over the comparison of the annuity to the S&P and the losses and what you would have, is so big. And I think a lot of folks don't understand how important that is when you get to that retirement age of what happens if I retire today, the importance of what happens over the next 3 to 4 years in the market if I keep my money in the market, because that can make or break what you're going to wind up living like over the next 10 to 15 years. And that slide shows exactly that. Um, what products do you mostly write? What's your favorite product?
I do pivot, and again, that comes from research and being a student of the business. You guys want to learn the basic fundamentals, then you can always, call up the carrier and kind of get to understand their stuff better with their sales team. If you want to see it in action, get someone like me involved, and then that's when you're really gonna grasp it. Lately, it's been a theme. I've been utilizing a theme quite a bit, especially the growth indices. So Performance Elite Plus comes with a bonus.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if somebody's looking for just straight up income, what's your favorite product for straight up income annuity?
Yeah, Athene too. Right now, they've got a great income product. Kind of depends on the situation and stuff. F&G's also got a great income product. And then if you got something like, not that it's a huge money maker, but I'm all about taking time to help a client and establish them as a client so that I can, potentially get referrals or other things. Like this week, yesterday, I closed another $55,000 transfer, and it came from a referral. I didn't even pick up the phone. They called me. So NLG has a product, Secure Fit Growth, where say they've got under 10,000, they got $6,000 transferred over, and they want to contribute to it, continue to contribute to it. You can utilize that too. But then don't think I'm not going to talk about life insurance or tax-free retirement, IULs, all the other things that we offer.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and I think that's a highly underused product too, especially with the amount of IULs we're writing and the people that get declined that may want to put a good lump sum away every month. It's doesn't give you the death benefit, but it gives you some sort of indexing growth. And I think we need to push that a little bit more. What would you say was the toughest part of learning this and being able to speak the way you speak now? Because you're just very relaxed. It's not no pressure. It's to me, I think why you're so good at it is because you just make people feel like you're curious and interested, and trying to help. You're not slamming them, blasting me with questions that make me feel uncomfortable. And the way you ask it is very, very nonchalant. I think that's a huge deal. Was it always that way, or did you have to learn to kind of be so so mellow with people?
Oh gosh. Having kids helped me mellow out, I think. I had to learn patience real quick, man. But for those that haven't had to go that route, right, it does take time and effort. And like I said, continuously being a student of the business, I was calling the carriers when I first came over. I'm like, I don't know why people aren't taking advantage of this. It kind of seems interesting. I want to learn more about it. And now that I know what I know, I'm very confident, and that confidence comes over as well. I am passionate about it. I think they can pick up on that. They can feel it. And you can feel really good about the product despite the naysayers or any kind of, if you've heard any negativity, like F&G, their S&P index has outperformed with a cap of 10%, has outperformed the actual S&P in the market 14 out of the last 15 years. The stuff works. You can feel really good about it, and it pays, and it's extremely sticky. And I think with anything, whether you're talking about life or whatever the solution is that you're talking about, just be confident, because day one, you know more than 99% of the general population. We've all heard it many times. It's true. They don't have a clue. So just say something. I've unintentionally lied before, but I said it with such confidence that I think at the end of the day, as long as you're going into it with a true heart, no one is coming into a conversation with me and leaving in a better situation or a worse situation.
Yeah,
Okay. Even if I mess up a little, it's like, no, I'm still, no matter what we're doing, you're at least going to be educated on your options. You're going to have the opportunity to vote. All right. And then, you're likely going to get put in a better position too. And I believe that.
for
So,
sure. It's funny. I had a client. I was talking with one of my agent's father and stepfather. I'll tell you, the first annuity I wrote was on my dad, and it was the biggest pain in my ass ever. And I'm going like, Dad, I'm your son. Like, what's the deal? He's like, well, you don't know what you're doing. Like, and I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to ask a million questions, and you're going to learn a bunch, and I'm going to learn a bunch. I'm like, fair enough. So I was talking to my agent and his stepdad, and it was funny. He was asking so many questions, and I'm just thinking back to when I was doing it with my dad, and I was like, his name is Fred. I was like, Fred, let me just explain to you something. No matter what you do, if you get into an annuity, you're going to be in a better situation than where you're at now, because you don't want to lose any money. You're looking for lifetime income. And so it's like, exactly what you said, Thomas. They're not, no matter what they do with you, they're going to be in a better situation if they're looking for something that will protect their money, because there's nothing better to protect your money than a fixed index annuity. Um, this is a good question. Do you ever recommend the Performance Elite Plus? If so, to what type of client? Because,
and now I saw that question and I was
yeah,
like,
I like it.
you know, um, here's what I'll say. Yes, I do. With the plus, you're typically getting it typically comes with a bonus, right? And sometimes, and I think it's important to know your comp, sometimes it can even pay a little better. However, at the end of the day, it's really about doing what's best for the client, right? And that's my genuine opinion. I feel like if I do right by the client, they're going to come back. I'm going to establish a book of business that's okay having a phone call with me once a year and sending me referrals. And I mean, don't shoot the messenger, but I don't always want to buy leads, right? So anyway, that's what I've established. And um, if there's a client who I've gone through the presentation, I know I'm putting them in a better position. I haven't illustrated the plus. I briefly, if you remember, I briefly hit on that bonus up front, but I said, that's icing on the cake. We'll kind of talk about that later. Well, if I can't educate you and get you to get out of your own way as a client, and I know I'm putting you in a better spot, now I've got to sell you to help you out. And I'm going to use that plus product as a selling tool, because now I'm talking about a bonus. So let's just say you've got 100,000, and I'm gonna pick a theme, and I'm just gonna throw it out there and say, no, I understand, Frank. I do feel obligated to tell you. I mean, in my opinion, this is the perfect solution, tailor suited to you and your needs, your goals, the discussion we had. However, right now they just happen to be giving you, $18,000 just to do business with them too, because they're offering an 18% bonus on 100,000. That's 18,000. I say now, Frank, you can't put that in your pocket day one, but it goes right into the account day one to start growing with uninterrupted compounding interest. So instead of charging you, they're actually paying you to do business. And then I shut up, and usually they're like, well, tell me more about that. And so if I have to sell it, I use the plus. The reason why I don't, throw the plus out there right away, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, regardless of how you do it, is the plus does come with usually like a small fee. And there's some other things, but anyway, either way, it's phenomenal for the client. Go wrong.
Yeah, and it's it gives you the extra bonus, but it comes with a 0.95% fee. So after 10 years, the extra bonus that you're getting is gone with the fee. And David, I'm gonna make you a co-host too, just so you can unmute yourself. For me, I offer the plus if someone needs that extra liquidity. Because with the Performance Elite, you can take 5% a year every year, penalty free after year one. Um, and if most of the time these plans are meant to subsidize Social Security. And
Mm.
when you're subsidizing your Social Security, they, whoever they is, say you shouldn't take more than 5% a year to have that money last you for the rest of your life. So if you give them access to 10, most people aren't very disciplined with money. They may take 10 and they may wind up running out of money. So unless they have a specific reason as to why they need the 10%, I try to stick with the regular Performance Elite. But David, can you unmute and give me your take on that as well, please?
On using versus not using the Performance Elite?
The plus versus the regular.
Plus versus the regular, I mean, the plus gives certain benefits, but when you're looking at the client and what they're going to need, I always start with, this is kind of a different answer, Frank. I always start with trying to get the client to understand how much money they need to live on when they get to that age. So if they know their mortgage is going to be paid off, but they still have other expenses that add up to $4,000 a month, how much of that is Social Security going to handle? What's left? Because that's what we're trying to get this annuity to handle. And if the plus can handle it, that's great. But if you can handle it without the plus, which eliminates some of their ability to draw the money out, you're now showing them how they can protect themselves from taking money out before they need to take it. And I sell that as, we can do this product. It's a little lower in fees, so you're saving money on the product, but it's putting you in a position so you know when you stop working, you've got the cash flow, you don't have to think about it. Now all I can do is focus on how can we increase that number? How can we help you to increase your savings? So I look at the cost of the annuity, but I focus on what is the annuity going to provide so that I can hit their target cash flow need and then build off of that.
Okay. Yeah, and David's, I mean, where do you at, David, issue paid for the year annuity value right now?
I'm over 5 million and I've got honestly about 17 million I'm getting ready to close right now. So I'm really hoping to finish the year with a bang.
You said 17 million?
I've got 17's a low number. I've got a few companies that are actually talking to me about converting some of their traditional 401ks and building in a whole layer of annuities for hundreds of employees. So
I
I've got some
understand. So
crazy things that are going out there that I'm probably going to have to look at people like Frank and some others and say, hey, I need some help writing some apps. I could end up with a few hundred apps I got to write in the next 90 days.
David,
I
and
got a
that
pen
would
ready, David. Saying.
that would be a really good contest to run. Like, hey, any new agent that writes two annuities in the next 60 days, 30 days, maybe we could throw them a bone like that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, if I
Dave,
can get that to actually close off, that'd be really nice.
no doubt about it. So, thank you for your input, Dave. All right, Thomas, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap this up? We're a little bit over, but this was really good. I got so many good comments and a ton of emails. So please don't forget to email me that presentation so I can get it out to everybody that requested it.
Yeah, and I did put my personal number and email in there too if you guys want to reach out. Obviously, we're all, time is money, right? So again, I'm always encourage folks, if you got someone on the line, get one of us involved. Maybe David, if he's not too busy writing the 17 million and stuff like that. It sounds like he's got his hands full, but yeah, more than happy to help. If you just want to learn the basics, then call the carriers, F&G, Athene, NLG, whomever, and study up on it. But I'm good. Thanks, man.
Sure. Well, thank you, Thomas. I greatly appreciate you sharing with us. Guys, we do this every week. We need more of y'all writing annuities because I promise you it will change the way you run your business, bar none. It has saved me more times than I can count, and it helps your clients. At the end of the day, this is the best thing you can do to serve your clients at full capacity. So have a wonderful weekend. We will see you all on Monday, the builders call. Tomorrow, the TNL gets released. And if you guys have any questions or needs, feel free to reach out. We are absolutely here to help y'all. But Thomas, David, thank you all for your help today. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful weekend.